Welcome to InTouch, dedicated to real estate professionals worldwide. We're here to educate you, entertain you, and empower you in all facets of real estate. Are you ready for the latest news, trends, and market updates? Then it's time to get in touch. Welcome to today's show. We are in the midst of 7 steps to powerful paychecks. We are on Rule 6 of 31 golden rules to take your business to the next level. And Rule 6, the title is Communicate Clearly. I can't stress this rule enough. The professionals that I know in our industry that have gone top level, that operate at the highest standard of excellence, know how to communicate clearly. They are concise, they are right to the point, and their business thrives because of that skill. So let's start off today's session with a verse from the Bible. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Part of communication is listening, and listening intently, being fully present, and when you do speak, speaking concisely. As I like to say, the fewer the words you use, the better. People respond positively to concise messages that quickly explain the point. When following up with your relationships, remember that in today's culture, people have a short attention span and tend to be less patient than in times past. So in our fast-paced world, people do not have time to deal with people who have low communication skills. So after the niceties and introductions are complete, a direct, right to the point lead-in question is in order. If the person you're speaking with can't figure out why you are contacting them or are confused by your communication, you have little chance to harness their attention to present your offering. So we find ourselves in the midst of step 2, Gary. And step 2 in the 7 steps model is consistent follow-up. In my opinion, this is the most important step to generate income and where I see most sales professionals fail over the long term. If you're in sales, that means you're typically a great presenter and the initial contact comes naturally, but that consistent follow-up takes discipline and figuring out what you're going to say and getting right to the point with that follow-up can be a challenge. So let's talk about your follow-up, Gary. When you go after clients that you've already met with, that you want to engage, you want to develop that relationship with, what are your strategies when you follow up?
Yeah, Andrew, it's basically like you said, it's asking questions, making sure you're getting to the point of what they really want to do. Sometimes they'll tell you in the beginning, and sometimes it might take some time to pull that through. But you really want to find out what their objectives are and what they want to do next. So, yeah, clear communication, follow up. I'm working on a commercial deal that I've been working on for the past at least a year. And so it's continually asking, okay, what's your plan? Where do you want to be? Where does your company want to be? And sometimes it's kind of an ebb and flow, and it's just a matter of staying in front of that client so they don't forget about you, because a year can go by, and if you don't have constant communication, they'll forget who you were, and possibly another agent will pop up and say, oh, hey, I've got this. How about looking at this? I've seen that happen before too. So you always want to stay present and in front of them, either by phone calls, lunches, emails, texts, maybe a little bit of all of those. So constantly being in front of that client, but not being a pest, of course, right? They've got their job and they need to do things. So it's all timing, and you should know when you're going to be a pest and when you're actually following up and doing your job.
As you said, it's finding that fine line balance between annoyance and consistent communication. And that's where your language, what you're communicating, the reason for your phone call or the reason for your text, and having valid reasons to continue to push the ball forward rather than just calling with the same redundant script. Are you ready yet? Do you want to make the move now? That's going to go nowhere. Eventually, they're going to avoid the call. So, as I like to say, get to the point. Once you introduce your main idea, clearly define your product or service, then present the opportunity for a decision to be made. If you're not receiving the results you desire, there are reasons why your audience is not responding. And it's usually one of the following problems. Problem number one, the audience does not understand exactly what you are offering. And the solution is to learn to communicate more clearly. In this case, you can refine your message and offer it in a fresh, concise way. Alternatively, you can hire experts who know how to communicate to the audience you seek to attract. So no matter what you're presenting, in our case, it may be a residential service or a commercial brokerage service, or the opportunity for them to invest into real estate. Those are service offerings. But you also may have products that you're offering, depending on what kind of entrepreneur you are. But if they don't clearly understand exactly what you're offering and exactly the benefits that they're going to receive, they will typically opt out, not necessarily because they're not interested. It's because they don't fully understand exactly what you're communicating. The second problem that I see is the audience you are pursuing is not interested in what you are offering. And the solution is to redefine your target market. In this case, rebuild your database with the right relationships. And again, alternatively, you can hire experts who know how to target your ideal audience. So if you find yourself in a place where you have a database, a network, a group of individuals that are unqualified, for example, to conduct the service that you provide. Let's use real estate as an example. Let's say your network in general does not have the qualifications needed to purchase the type of properties that you want to be selling. Well, you need to develop a new network of qualified individuals that can purchase the product that you are selling. So that's target market, ideal audience targeting. And that goes back to our rule number 2, which is identify your target market. So if you haven't listened to that, I'd encourage the listener to scroll back and listen to rule number 2, identify your target market. The third problem that I see is what you are offering does not carry enough value to make the audience act. And the solution is to restructure your value proposition. Alternatively, hire experts who understand value and how to communicate that value to your intended audience. Now, the value proposition is becoming more and more important in our industry. And why is that? Because with recent changes, and now that the buyer's agents are no longer paid automatically coming through sellers, commissions, and offerings from the listing agent, the buyer's agents are having to redefine their own value to establish their value. And listing agents have always had to establish their value. When they go on that listing presentation, especially if they're competing, they have to establish the value of listing with them and the service they would provide versus the seller choosing another agent to list with. So if your proposition, your offering does not carry enough value, you are not going to see the results that you're looking for. Now, once you master your message, your target market, and that value proposition, you want to work on your delivery. And that's what communicating clearly is all about. The style and tone of your communication will many times determine the outcome. Wise word choices go a long way when communicating your message to your audience. So, Gary, let's talk about the words you choose when you're with clients. You have an internal script. I've heard it many times. You have the gift of humor and entertainment and warming people up, getting them out of their nervousness and sometimes the wall that people put up when they don't know somebody, especially a stranger that's potentially taking them on a journey that's going to be the largest investment of their life. So, how do you break down those walls? And what are some of the key word choices or one liners that you utilize to break the ice?
Yeah. So Andrew, is my methodology, I guess you would say, is the same whether it's in business or whether I'm at church meeting somebody for the first time. It's getting to know who your person that you're talking to, who they are, and find out a little bit about their family, maybe some of their hobbies, their activities. Um, and see if I can find something that I have in common with them. Usually you can. And not everybody has to be in sports and surfing and whatever you're interested in. Find out something about that person that you can relate to, and then bring that up. Talk to them about that because they want to know uh, a little bit about yourself. And if you can find something that you can relate to them, then it's going to make the communication a lot easier. And they're going to want to being around you. So I think that's key. Find something about that person and include it in your conversation, and their ears will perk up. They want to be around you, I guess you could say. So you need to do that, usually within the first 30 seconds to under a minute. If not, they're going to move on and not want to be with you, right? Which is okay. You don't have to be friends with everybody, right? You can move on, but it's that 30-second pitch, or what we call an elevator pitch, finding out about that person, a little bit about them, their family, and bringing some humor into that too.
There's that great saying goes something like people don't care until they know how much you care, right? And once you've established that you do care, you've taken a personal interest in who they are as human beings, then it's natural for them to listen and take a personal interest in what's important to you. And there's so many ways to communicate today. I'd like to transition to the different communication methods because it feels overwhelming, I'm sure, for so many people to try to figure out how to navigate this digital age with all the choices of these different communication methods. And there's so many. I mean, first and foremost, you need to understand the different communication methods available to you and work on your skills to choose the right mediums that work best for you to your target audience. And this will improve your performance results. Now, the common communication methods today, in today's age, they include visual methods, audible methods, and written methods. When you break it down, everything really falls into one of those categories. So my encouragement for the listener is to really hone in on your own skill to figure out, how do you digest information and how do you prefer to communicate? Are you a visual person or more of an audible person or more of a narrative written person? Because whichever way you naturally communicate is typically the way that you're going to attract other clients. And it makes sense for whatever comes natural to you for you to utilize in order to be that magnet towards other clients. So let's just talk about the visual methods. Obviously, the most important is face-to-face. That's the best in today's fast-paced world, a little bit harder to get face-to-face with people. And that's where virtual meetings have now come into play. So you got face-to-face, virtual meetings, social media, television, video, film, events, and webinars. Those are pretty much the mainstays for visual communication. So my question, if you are a visual learner and a visual communicator, how are you communicating to your clients visually? Which one of those really stands out? Again, face-to-face, virtual meeting, social media, and I'll just say video because I know it's challenging for people to get on television. But let's just talk about video. You can certainly produce your own videos. And then events, webinars, larger gatherings. Now, the alternative, the audible methods that are out there, and if we kind of rewind time, the big breakthrough, the telephone, that was it. I mean, for years and years and years in sales, the phone was the best way to be efficient, to reach out to the most amount of clients. The challenge today is people don't pick up their phone. It goes to voicemail if they even have a voicemail set up. But the good news is you could do things like voice text. Point is, if you use the telephone, your mobile device, to communicate audibly, you're going to have to be a little bit more creative. Of course, call and hopefully they recognize the number, you're in their contacts, they pick right up. But when people don't pick up, which seems to be the norm now, what are you doing? And if again, you're gifted audibly, not necessarily with written or visual, well, then yes, voice texting or figuring out a way to deliver these messages audibly is going to be in your best interest. Now, the second way is podcasts or radio. That's what we're doing now. That's something that's always come natural for me. I enjoy listening to audio and I enjoy speaking. So for me, it makes sense for me to do a podcast to communicate clearly to my audience. But for others, it may bring up a sense of nervousness or they don't like the way their voice sounds. I've heard it all. And it doesn't take much to find yourself a great microphone and get a little voice acting coaching or whatever you need to do to practice to get yourself comfortable. But audio can go a long way. It's much, much simpler to produce than video. Now there's satellite radio these days. The old radio, the AM FM is kind of dying out. It does still exist, and there's a certain generation that still listens to that. It can be an effective medium for advertising and marketing, but certainly the younger generation is listening to satellite and podcasts. And then finally, you have the written methods, and that's texting, email, direct mail, books, blogs, articles, all those things you can engage in. And if you're a writer, it comes naturally. The words should flow right out and you should have no problem doing newsletters and things like that to your client. If you find yourself texting all day and that's your thing, that's probably the one you should lean on is the narrative. But you have to be able to articulate clearly in your words and it has to come across as very professional. The issue I have with texting personally, and I don't like to text, is because people operate in short code. So you've got broken sentences. Sometimes the inference is not accurate to what the person means. You're not really getting into an in-depth relationship via text. It's going to be very hard to do that. I do understand it's very efficient. That's great, but it's certainly not the highest form of communication, in my opinion. Now, if you're target marketing, the narrative type, the analytical type, great. Writing out blogs and articles or doing newsletters and longer emails to your clients, if that's what your clients prefer because that's their preferred communication method, great. That's awesome. Then you want to hone in on that and become an expert on delivering facts and news, so on and so forth. So Gary, let's talk about your preferred method of communication. You've heard the variety of ways that we can all communicate with our clients right now. What are the ones that you exercise and that you've seen effective in generating business and income?
Well, unfortunately, my preferred method is face to face, but that's getting harder and harder to accomplish these days, even for a cup of coffee, slice of pizza, whatever it is. That's what I push my clients to. Now, in our business, Andrew, whether it's commercial or residential, I would say, and I might be off on this, but I'm just thinking, probably 90% of other, not only our clients, but the people that we have to work with, realtors, commercial brokers, their preferred method is either email or text. And I'm going to say most of the time, text. So that does make it difficult because you've already mentioned that when you send a text, and if you're using Siri, good luck. She may or may not spell it correctly. You do have to look at those texts before you send them. Don't just say, "Hi Siri, send," and not look at it first because it's probably going to be incorrect, whether it's spelling, punctuation, or the message doesn't go over correctly. I showed a really nice property in Mount Soledad this week, and I couldn't get a hold of the other agent by voice after trying many, many times. They never called me back. So I went to the secondary method, which is text, which everybody loves, right? You don't have to talk to anybody in person or on the phone. You can just text them. And that was the preferred method of that real estate agent. So I was able to start texting and started communication, and was able to show a couple of properties that that listing agent has coming up that's not on the MLS. But that was their preference. So sometimes you have to lean into that to get what you want. But do be careful. Like Andrew said, punctuation and that message going over, even talking about commissions these days. I did ask, is your seller uh, going to have any compensation for this particular product? And they said, yes, they are. Didn't say how much or whatever. That's fine. Just wanted to find that out, and I did find that out in that communication. So just be careful what you do text.